Hello everybody, Donnie here, welcome. Here we share true stories from real people. Starting out today with story 1 is about a man who caught his wife cheating. So he was going to go through the divorce proceedings, but she's being real difficult about it, of course. So kind of a common theme with a lot of these stories, so enjoy. So it starts out, caught my wife cheating, divorced her, and she tried to run over my new partner. Her ultimate regret ensued. Hi everyone, I never thought that I'd be writing a story here, but I sure have one to tell you all. And it just came to a conclusion recently, which is why there's no better time than now. Now I did have the urge to come around and narrate it some months ago, but with all the drama in my life, it somehow skipped my mind. I, 36 male, was married to my ex-wife, 35 female. Her name is Cassandra, and we were married for 6 years. We had an alright marriage. I mean, for the most part, I can't say it was perfect or anything, but it wasn't horrible. We had met on Facebook and something sparked up between us there. Things were pretty great during the dating phase, and I was very cautious looking for any signs of red flags because I grew up with a mother who was very abusive towards my father, and I didn't want to find myself heading towards anything close or similar to that situation. I didn't see any warning signs though, so we eventually got married and things were okay. Unfortunately, about 2 years into the marriage, we were starting to have big fights about once every month. Quite frankly, it started to get exhausting, but I was doing my best to make things work because why not? We had a good start to our relationship, so I really felt that it was possible for us to figure out what was wrong and sort it out. I suggested couples therapy more than once, but after one session, she refused to go again. I personally think she wasn't happy with the fact that the therapist didn't exactly seem to be on her side. It became evident that she had a temper, though, and hadn't been there before. It was part of what we were going to explore, but we never had more than one session. My own assumption was that it was related to the loss of her father, but I couldn't be certain of that. She would never break things or hurt anyone, though. It was just a lot of loudness. Anyway, we eventually hit a groove of just coexisting with each other. There were still quite a few good times, but it definitely wasn't the kind of strong, exciting relationship that we used to have. There was no doubt that I was still in love with her, though. I recognized that if things didn't change in the next few years, we'd likely be heading towards divorce again. I wanted to give it a try, though, because I never saw marriage as something that you should just walk into and walk out of, obviously excluding abuse, infidelity, and other major deal breakers. I think that's enough background, though. I'm not the highest ranking employee in existence where I work. I'd say I'm painfully mid-level. However, I often have to travel to other states for work, and what I'm about to talk about was one of those times. I went for an expo, and while it was a 4-day thing, the company representatives there were called back after 3 days because there was a work emergency that needed more hands on deck. As the good little boy I was at my job, I rushed back. The only thing was that I didn't tell my wife that I was coming back. Most of the reason was because I wanted to surprise her. Things had gotten to a point where I felt like I had to force the spark back into things because we were just coasting and not even trying to be spontaneous. The day I got back, I bought the flowers that I knew that she liked and went home. Obviously, I had my keys, so I let myself in. I knew she was supposed to be home that day, so when I didn't see her in the living room or in the kitchen, I went straight to the bedroom and opened the door. Right there, I saw a man on top of Cassandra doing what you know he was. I could hear her making sounds, and unfortunately for me, the entire image is something that had refused to wash away from my mind. The change in lighting as I opened the door made them aware I was there, and they both jerked up in shock. I stood in the doorway as both of these people rushed to wear their clothes. The man put on his underwear, grabbed the rest of his clothes, and tried to push through me into the doorway into the room. I don't know if he knew that she was married or if he was a regular partner of hers, but in that moment, I found myself with one hand on his throat. I wasn't trying to strangle him, but I was gripping tight. I slapped him twice. Even up until now, I can't understand why that was the way that I chose to hit him, but that's what came out of me. He looked shocked, and then he looked like he wanted to fight back, but I let go of his neck and he left. By that point, I turned to Cassandra, who was struggling to put her bra back on. I was infuriated. I just stood there, flowers at my feet, just looking at her as she said nothing and dressed back up. She was avoiding looking at me, and I genuinely didn't even know what to do in that moment. As she struggled to straighten her hair, she said the stupidest thing to me. "Why are you even back?" In that moment right there, I felt like doing what I had just done to her affair partner. I wanted to hit her so badly. For some reason, I just couldn't move though, so I stood there like a fool. She didn't meet my eyes and said, "You weren't supposed to be back," under her breath. I still didn't say anything, and she seemed to lose it at that point. "You weren't supposed to be back. It's your fault for not telling me that you were coming back, or you would have never have seen this. I asked you for an open relationship, and you said no. I have needs. I tried to do things without hurting you, but you just had to come back unannounced. Why?" At that point, I walked across the room, grabbed her by the collar of the shirt that she had just put on, and raised a fist to hit her. She looked frightened, and I'm not sure if I would have stopped if she didn't look that way, but I stopped regardless. I'm not proud of that moment. Even out of context, it's not something that I look back on with pride, though part of me rather darkly wishes that I would have struck her for the satisfaction of it. As I let go of her and walked out, I could hear her yapping behind me. "You were going to hit me? Really? This is why I don't freaking love you anymore. You call yourself a man, but you're not. You make me sick." And so much more. At that moment, I didn't understand why you'd do those things or say those things to someone who almost just hit you, but later on, it seemed like she was just trying to aggravate me and actually get me to hit her. That way, she could send me to jail or something. I just walked out of the house, though. I couldn't deal with it and what I might have actually done to her because the situation made me feel like I was inches from snapping. Their smell was in the bedroom and in the house. I found a friend's place to crash at, and he was extremely sympathetic to everything that I'd gone through. He recommended that I divorce her as soon as I could. And while I wasn't eager to do that because lawyers are expensive, and I learned a lot more than she did, I was wary of alimony in her favor. He said that I could potentially get a smaller alimony payment if I had proof of her infidelity. I knew divorce was the answer, so I don't think my hesitation was because I was thinking of working things out with her. I'm not that idiotic. I think that Cassandra sort of snapped in that moment because she started sending me text messages telling me how I had a small penis, how his was bigger, how he was better, and all that type of stuff. I think she was very stupidly enraged that I caught her and she didn't have a rational emotional response to it. She blamed me for ruining the good thing that she had with her affair partner, and this was how she decided to resolve her emotions. For some reason, my friend was there and told me to screenshot the messages as she sent them, which I did, and right there was such a good call from him. About a minute after her rant, I watched all the messages unsend. I don't know whether she had a brief moment of lucidity, but she clearly had second thoughts. After that, she just sent messages cursing me out, and those ones had no mention of her infidelity. My pal made several drinks for me through the night until I fell asleep. About 2 weeks later, I finally found a divorce lawyer that was in my pay grade and who I felt very confident with. I presented what I had, and he said that we'd be able to do something strong with it. I felt good about it, though he didn't seem too confident that I'd be let off without needing to pay anything. He assured me that he was going to try his best, though. She was served with the papers and took about a full month to respond to them. I think that was an intentional choice because it was clear as day that at that point that neither of us wanted to be in this marriage with one another. The divorce proceedings started, and Cassandra was being an absolute butt through them. She was trying to make things harder than they needed to be at every opportunity that she had. At that moment, we had been separated for several months, so it didn't make any sense. She was just trying to frustrate me, and it was working. It was during this time that I was already trying to get over her. I'll admit that I started with a bunch of one-night stands, but at a point I knew they weren't for me. Part of the reason that I never agreed to an open relationship with her. I've never been anything else but a one-woman type of man. I used to read a lot before life and work kind of took that pastime away from me, but I was trying to find peace in things that didn't come in a bottle. So I found myself at a bookstore at some point during the whole divorce debacle. I was looking for some fiction to read, but I had been out of it for so long that I didn't know where to start. There was a lady there in the same section as me, so I asked her what she'd recommend if I was looking to read some science fiction. She asked me what I liked. I told her, and the next thing you know, we were talking at length about books and her favorite series. And all that, I think we stood there for about 30 minutes before I picked out a book based on her recommendations, and then I got her number. I'm smiling thinking about it because my interaction with her was like a salve to everything that I've been going through. We started going out soon after that, and I was very open with her that I was going through a divorce. But that didn't really seem to faze her in any way. She said that she was glad that I was upfront about it and that it didn't matter much to her. She was distracting me from the pain of my life at that point, but I was glad that I didn't seek her out as a distraction. We met naturally, and she turned out to be such an amazing person. The divorce was dragging on, and I genuinely wanted to be done with it. But Cassandra clearly didn't. At a point, I and the lady that I met back at the bookstore, let's say her name is Emily, had been dating for 5 months. And yet I was still dealing with the divorce. It was at this point that things went crazy though. Emily and I had a nice day in town, and we were walking towards her car and in the parking lot of a shopping mall. At this point, everything happened so fast. I heard a car's engine rev suddenly and a vehicle came right towards us, though more towards Emily. I tried to pull her out of the way by yanking her arm, but she was struck in her outstretched leg when I pulled her. I can't imagine the way it felt when I heard her scream in pain and I saw that her leg was broken above the ankle. I was about to call 911 on my phone, but the car had hit another one really hard and was reversing. It faced Emily and me where we were on the floor, and I actually had to drag her between the cars before the vehicle drove forward and hit some other cars. By this point, people's attention was drawn to the scene and they were coming closer. It was at that point that someone got out of the driver's side of the car, and I saw it was Cassandra. In that moment, it probably made the most sense apart from it being a psychopath, but at the same time, I was so shocked because there was no way to say that she had just literally tried to kill us, or at least kill Emily. She moved towards us threateningly, but a bystander restrained her. To be 100% honest, I felt like she had lost her mind. I couldn't imagine that level of hatred madness from her. The extent of trying to run over Emily. I couldn't explain it away despite how much I hated her. The police came soon afterwards along with an ambulance, and they took Emily to the hospital. Cassandra was arrested, and as she was being arrested, she screamed in my general direction. It hasn't been a year and you're already walking around with a blank. It was scary, but it was also incredibly confusing because it seemed like she actually felt she had gotten the short end of the stick when I caught her cheating and divorced her for it. She was acting like a victim as if I hadn't literally walked in on her sleeping with a man. It was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Emily could have died that day. She made a full recovery, spoiler alert, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. When I told her that it was my soon-to-be ex-wife, I was sure things were over. Who would want to live the rest of their life with some crazy woman trying to kill them? But all she said was that, as long as she was in prison, there wouldn't be anything to be scared of. And of course, prosecutors decided to pursue the case, especially because the parking lot had several cameras that recorded the entire thing. Apparently, she had driven past us once, and I think it was there that she had identified us. She then circled back and attempted to hit Emily. She clearly made the decision and didn't question it at any point. At that point, her divorce proceedings essentially came to a halt because of her entire criminal case. Being a major fixture in a serious court case isn't fun in case you thought jury duty was as bad as it could get. It went on for quite some time, to be honest, and it messed around with my work, which I really didn't like. She wasn't worth all this stress. It was a walk in the park for the prosecutors, though. There were eyewitnesses, accounts, CCTV footage, and Emily and I both testified as to what had happened. There were quite a few charges, but she was found guilty on every single one, of which the worst was attempted murder. There was no question that she was trying to use the car to kill someone, especially with the second attempt to drive into us, and in the end, she got 12 years in prison. Honestly, I was shocked that it wasn't longer, but the claim was that she showed remorse for her actions. I still feel it was an act and that she had no criminal history whatsoever. She also had the chance to get out early if she was a good girl in prison. I wanted more time, but 12 years in prison was not a little time for someone in their mid-30s. She still had to attend divorce proceedings remotely, though on some occasions her lawyer represented her entirely. At that point, things actually started to move the way that they should have from the start. And with the last piece of the puzzle that she had beautifully served to us by attempting to kill my girlfriend, she got nothing. As in absolutely nothing. The judge refused to even remotely reward such behavior with anything that wasn't hers from the start. The smile it put on my face was huge because at that moment, it was as if everything had just come together despite all the pain that she had caused. Cassandra has been out of my life and it feels like she's gone for good, even though I know that she'll come out one day, but it makes life so much easier to live, to be 100% honest. I moved out of the old apartment because it reminded me of her cheating, but Emily and I got a place and we've been incredibly happy together. Emily herself jokes that she was happy to be the sacrifice to help me put my ex away. I don't know what I could have done differently, maybe left her when I realized that she had a temper, but apart from that, I don't know. All I can say is to avoid crazy women, even when they weren't crazy from the start. I'm glad I'm better off in the end, and that's what counts. I'll be looking forward to reading your comments and seeing your jokes. That's part of what makes me love this community. Story 2, update. My 20 female, single mother, 44 female is pregnant. I am so angry and upset and I have no idea how to voice this. Original post. I, 20 female, am a full-time college student and I live at home. My living at home is largely because my mother has 3 children that are younger than I am and she works a ton. And when she's not working, she's sleeping. So I'm essentially their primary caregiver. It is to the point where I watch and I take care of my little siblings more than my mom does, and they listen to me more than they do her. I love them more than life itself, but being a caregiver to children I never had is exhausting, especially since she pays me very little for it, and I can't get a job because they have nowhere to go if I did. I am stuck caring for them. But is it worth it because they need a mom figure? My mom has been acting weird lately, so I figured she was pregnant. I found a paper in her bag that confirmed just that, and I have no idea what to do. I cannot take care of another child that I had no say in creating. I can't do it. I'm exhausted and I just can't. She's only been with her boyfriend for a couple of months, and I have no doubt that he'll leave her a single mom again, which will make me have to step up and be a parent. If I have to do it all over again, I want to get a job and leave. Even if I have to juggle a full-time job in college. It seems like the better option, but my mother will likely refuse to get childcare for my little siblings, and my oldest little siblings are too young to have to deal with this, and I can't leave them here alone. I want to voice this to her, but I don't even know what I'm expecting, and I'm terrified that it'll completely shatter my already shaky relationship with my mom. What do I do? She hasn't even announced it to us yet, and I've been sobbing nonstop since I found out. Do I say something? And if so, how do I say it? Now for the update. Hi everyone, it's been a long time coming. I've had so many people requesting some kind of update, and I held off for a long time because my previous post garnered so much hate and attention. It was overwhelming and distressing, but so many of you were also so helpful, so I want to thank you for that. I want to preface by saying that this update isn't exactly what you guys were hoping for, but it works and I'm okay. Now on to the update. So for a while there, I gave my mom absolute radio silence. I was disgusted by her truthfully, didn't want to see her or look at her. I had so much anger and resentment, and I still do. So I said or did nothing and gave her the cold shoulder. And then she announced it on Halloween, like it was some joyous thing. Great, thanks Mom, another kid for me to raise. To her announcement, all my younger siblings were very clearly upset, as I was. I cannot pretend to be happy anymore, so I wasn't. And she cried for hours, and we all went on as if the announcement was never made. My little siblings convinced themselves it was a joke. Not the most mature thing to do, but I am beginning to realize that I am parentified, so it comes as no shock that then I was scared to hurt my mom's feelings. I continued to give her the cold shoulder and began picking up babysitting gigs for other people to make some money. If this was going to be a thing, I need the money to get out. She continued playing pretend with her boyfriend while acting as if her pregnancy wasn't a thing to her kids' faces. This was the norm for a while until she came to me one day crying, saying that she didn't know what to do. I told her how I felt, that I've raised my little siblings for the last several years of my life. I sacrificed my teenage years to step up and be a parental figure to these kids that I never birthed, and that I wouldn't do it again, that she would have absolutely no help from me with this baby because I am not giving up any more of my life for her kids. I've spent every year since I turned 20 grieving the life that I never got to have, hating my mother for making me feel like I couldn't go off to college and I wouldn't ruin my 20s for her either. She could do what she wanted, her body, her choice, but I would not be involved in that child's life. She scheduled an appointment to terminate the pregnancy the same day, which was a relief and an insult simultaneously. How dare you be excited only when you thought I'd raise your kid for you? Anyway, moving on, I am not a heartless monster, and I know that terminating a pregnancy isn't an easy choice. So I went with her and held her hand, even cried with her, and a few weeks later I fell into the worst place mentally I ever was, incredibly angry at her and honestly blamed myself for my mom's choice. I started to feel suicidal and depressed, and I made the choice to begin therapy. It's not easy at all, but it's a start. Once my mom learned that I was being a stand-in parent was causing these suicidal thoughts, she arranged childcare so that I could actually get a job and feel like I was doing something with my life. Things were going great until a couple of months ago when my mom started dating a new guy. I asked her if they were having sex, which she said yes, they were. I also asked her if she was using protection to avoid the situation we were in several months prior. She swore on my life that she was. I wouldn't be so stupid, she told me. Well, she got her period early and told me that she had BV again, all of which began to show me that the second thing wasn't true. And I accidentally saw a text on her phone confirming that she lied on my life, and they weren't using protection. So I blew up. We argued, and she made it seem like the fact that I looked at her notification was so much worse than the fact that she lied on her daughter's life. I went into a really bad place mentally after that. I felt like my life meant nothing to her. I cried often, and the suicidal thoughts came back. I screamed at her, told her how it made me feel. I shouldn't have screamed, but there were no words to describe the hurt that the situation caused. And then she came to me crying, telling me that she's sorry. I didn't tell her it was okay because it's not. It never will be, and it still makes me cry now. I also told her that the only thing that could maybe fix her relationship is her starting therapy, because there are no excuses for my mom's actions. But she is a broken woman with a lot of trauma, and she needs to end this cycle because her kids do not deserve this. So she started therapy, which is also a step. So that's where everything is with her at this point. Now for a small update on me. I am 1 semester away from being able to substitute teach, which will help me immensely as substitutes get paid well in my state. I'm also switching my major to nursing this fall, which is also very exciting. This is the first time in my life that I've been able to look to the future and see something. For a while there, I had hoped that I wouldn't live to see one. I still live at home, but it's bearable now. I'm a nanny for another family and have a steady income, so I'm doing better. Still struggling mentally, but I'll get there. The number one takeaway from this scenario, parentification is a hard thing to undo. I'm a broken person currently, but I can be fixed. And I pray one day that I'm a much better mother than she has ever been. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comments section down below. Thank you.